Hello and welcome to the London Bulls podcast with me, Tom, and him, KD. How
Hey
you doing,
everybody.
mate? You all right?
Yeah, really good, mate. I'm really excited about this. It's finally good
Yeah.
that we finally got this going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we've been talking about it for a while now, haven't we? And a lot of pub trips, a lot of pints, and
Yeah, yeah. We were at the
finally got to
Barrel
this day.
Simpsons, 3 pints in, already talking about what dream guests would be having on. But yeah, we're finally
Yeah,
here. And
yeah, no, absolutely.
Tom, just to kind of kick the podcast off, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself? Who are you? Why do you support Hereford? How's it all
Yeah,
come about?
that's a very good question, mate. I think I often ask myself that. No, I born and bred Hereford, and yeah, I went to my first game in '99, the Leicester FA Cup game, which yeah, I remember a bit about. I think I was 5 at the time, so but I remember Robbie Savage getting a lot of abuse, and I remember Emil Heskey played quite well that day, but obviously he went on to do quite well and scored against Germany actually in that 5-1 win. So that was, that was good as my first bit of football. I think Marcel O'Neill was the manager at the time of Leicester, and I remember him jumping up and down like a well, like a man possessed, really. But yeah, so that was that, and then you know, sort of slowly got into it. Went to a few more games in the seasons following, and then yeah, became hooked really, which is sad when I think about it. All those years, 20, 25 years this year, in December. I mean, it's mad. It really is. But hey ho, still here, still supporting them.
Who's the
But yeah,
is there anyone in your family that got you hooked? So who took you to the game?
my dad's who I blame. Um, and my sisters used to go as well. But yeah, my dad's he's the real problem. And I do tell him that quite often. That I blame him for it. And I remember on days, like playoff final in Wembley, that maybe he did the right thing. He just he took me, so fair dues to him, fair dues to him being brave.
Well,
Um,
your first game, you've seen us play a Premier League team. As fast-footed one, really, at that time.
it,
That
it
is,
was it was a big players, and they obviously went on to have good careers. Some of them, and Muzzy is it was there. You know, he played in the Prem for a while, so yeah. So that's my start in. How about you, mate? What was your first experiences?
yeah, I mean, I got hooked with my first game being the Morecambe playoff semi-final second leg
Oh
game.
well, yeah. What a
Reason
game!
everything. I mean, I
Mm.
was very spoiled, to be honest with you, for that to be my first game.
Yeah.
Um, I thought, people invade the pitch after every game, every Hereford game. I thought, wow, I want to keep doing this again. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I was actually 10 years old at that time. So I started
Mm.
supporting Hereford probably a bit later than you. Um, and I didn't really come from like a footballing family that really, into sport in general. I actually got into
Mm.
sport just because at the time I was actually quite morbidly obese. So my mum tried
Oh
to get me to
really?
exercise. Yeah, I love my
Yeah.
pizzas, my
Don't we
burgers
all?
and things. And yeah, I mean, I started playing for lads called Colts at that time, and then
Hmm.
I remember I think my mum we had like a Sky Sports subscription, and I was flicking through the channels, and then I saw us playing Morecambe in the first leg away, and it
Oh
literally
yeah.
landed on the point where Rob Purdy was about to take the penalty that would equalise the game, make it
Wow.
1-1, and I was hooked. I was watching this. I was like, "Wow, this is incredible!" And then I asked my uncle about getting tickets, and he managed to get me some somehow. We were
Yeah.
in the Blackfriars end, and Kandawiri with
Mm.
the header in the like, second or third minute. And yeah, from then I've been hooked. To be honest with you, I've never felt a feeling like it.
Yeah.
I think it's really special supporting your local team.
Mm.
I mean, I think
Definitely.
it definitely means a lot more.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's been 19 years or so. I've seen all the highs and lows with Packer fans. You mentioned Wembley. I was there both times, and
Mm.
yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Say that again. I think, but that's the beauty of being a Hereford fan, isn't it? We've had those highs, we've had those lows, and we'll probably cover a few of them today, and maybe if we go again in future episodes. But yeah, I think we want to, talk a little bit about why we want to do this. Why are we doing this podcast? What has led us to this moment, and why we think we should do it.
Yeah, I mean, I became an Exile fan. So last couple of years I moved to London and I felt a bit of a disconnect, I guess, because it was really difficult going to games. It's quite expensive traveling back to Hereford. And
Yeah,
I thought,
for
I
sure.
mean, you and I have had these conversations where we should take action and maybe creating a podcast could help bridge that gap a little bit and help us
Mm,
connect with other fans in London and, elsewhere.
yeah,
Fellow
yeah,
exiles could probably relate to us. So I think it's been a positive step. I don't think there's any other podcasts. I think the club do a really good job. There's Radio
hmm
Hereford FC. They do Going
yeah,
Down the Pub, which is run by Simon Wright and the guys there. They do
mm,
amazing stuff. But I thought this, we could start something that was a bit more candid. We could just talk about
yeah,
our experiences as fans, and yeah, it's really great to just get this up and running.
yeah. No, absolutely. I think you touched on Red Hereford FC. I think they've been a godsend. Obviously Radio Hereford and Worcester as well. With Keith Hall, it's so important for fans like us to have things like Radio Hereford FC and Hereford and Worcester to be able to have that connection and keep that connection to be able to listen to the games and that sort of thing. Um, and I think something that you've talked about when we've had conversations is about National League TV. Um, and obviously that's something we've used ourselves with the London Bulls. But I think it's important steps that those types of things happen. It's a shame that National League are now sort of taking some of that back, and we're not going to get all of the games that we should be getting because I think there's probably the audience for Hereford. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that National League TV and the impact it's had certainly this season?
Yeah, I mean, I guess starting with London Bulls in general, they've been doing some amazing work over the last
Mm,
few decades. I mean, I think since the club folded, there's not been that momentum it's had. And, before they were doing really amazing events in London, I would see this and coming to London, I went through their old pictures and I wanted to
mm,
kind of restart that. I think a lot of the old guys that used to run it have kind of moved on and had families or in different roles, and they've not been able to kind of keep that going. And I know quite a few
yeah.
new young London fans that have moved, like yourself included, and
Hmm.
thought there's some new energy we could maybe bring to this. And at
Yeah.
the same time, National League TV launched, and I thought this, why don't we just get some fans together and just watch games in a really informal way? And we found a pub in Marylebone, and we've done a couple of these socials, and we've had fans from all different backgrounds come along, and it's been a really nice experience. And I think they've kind of had a similar experience to us, but they felt that disconnect. They probably don't know many other Hereford fans, and it's just been a
Yeah.
nice focal point for them to come along, make some new friends, and
Hmm.
just experience watching the Bulls like again. Like, a
Yeah.
lot of people
Yeah.
maybe used to watch them in person when they were younger, when they lived in Hereford. But
Hmm.
I think it's been
Hmm.
really nice creating this new community, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's been interesting talking to people at these events, hasn't it? Where and it's all different ages as well. And I think that's what's been great for us is to chat to people who were there in 72 or maybe when we were in Division Two, and in the 90s and when we had the World Cup and then we nearly went out of business and obviously went down and all that sort of stuff. And then some of the sort of our age guys who saw some of that sort of success in the conference and going up to League One um and then obviously yeah, playoff final was in there as well. So yeah, it's been really interesting, and also people who maybe have only supported the club in the last where are we now, 9, 10 years of Hereford FC. So yeah, so I think as you say, those events have been great, really. And we watched the Rushall game away. That was the really windy Tuesday night game, wasn't it? And we won 1-0 there. And then our second game was the Alfreton real draw, which was
Yeah,
just an incredible game, incredible atmosphere. It's a shame we were 3-1 down, but to
you
come
could
back
you
and
could
do that in the
feel
last
the
minute.
energy just shift,
Yeah.
right? I mean, when it was 3-2, and I think we only had like 10 minutes to go at one point, but then there was
Mm,
still that belief, and I'm really happy the way it kind of ended because I think it was so good for the group. The people
mm,
stayed for a few more beers after, and I think if we did lose that game, people would have probably left a bit early.
Yeah.
I mean, that's experience you have of it. It's a bit of disappointment. You kind of feel like the playoffs are a bit too far now. And
Mm.
it was just amazing the way it ended. And I think there's a lot of momentum in the London Bulls community at the moment because of that. And I'm really excited
Mm.
going forward about where it'll go. Like I'm speaking to the Football Supporters Association about
Okay. Yeah.
formalizing this as a proper group, and
Yeah.
they've got some amazing connections. And we're looking at I've actually got a call with Carlisle United's London branch on Friday morning, and
Oh,
they're
well,
going
yeah.
to give me some tips about how to kind of like formalize it properly. So yeah, it's really good. I want to make this like it can also be an amazing support for the club in general. Like there are ways
Hmm.
you can also fundraise, I think.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think once we start to establish ourselves properly, we can look at ways we can really grow and just support the club from afar, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that I think it's important to talk about is what we want to do in the future, what we've got coming up, what we're planning to do. I don't think we've got too much more now this season, specifically, but next season, obviously, any sort of Tuesday night games where they are on National League TV or um, any games, obviously not Bishop Stortford now because they've gone down, but maybe Brackley or Banbury or those sorts of games or FA Cup games where maybe we can go in person
Well, it's something you
as a
simply not
group.
been promoted. There's
If we haven't been
there's
promoted,
around
obviously, if we
10
have,
Londonist
then
clubs in the league above.
then we can talk about Woking, Aldershot, and Maidenhead. But um, let's stick to this league at the moment, and maybe we'll have a chat about whether we'll go up in a second. But yeah, no, absolutely. And and we really want to try and get some events going. And as you said, hopefully in the future, try and do some fundraising for the club and do our bit, help out. Absolutely.
Yeah, and even as well, I think the club have also launched an association for former players, which has been really good to see.
Mm,
And
yeah.
we have quite a lot of players that are now based in London that used to play for the club. You got people like Lana Ainsworth I've seen on LinkedIn. He
Mm.
lives nearby. He's someone I'd love to see on the podcast one day.
Yeah, it'd be great to get his experiences actually of the club because obviously he was with us and then left and came back on loan and yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there is a way we can maybe even try and support former players with staying in touch with the club. I think that's something we can also offer
Hmm.
for Hereford as well. So yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
excited about how this goes. We're obviously in the early days, yeah, but it is looking really positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, and I think it's important to note as well. Hereford have got so many fans all over the country, all over the world. We seem to get about a bit, don't we? But I was reading Talking Bull today actually, and there's a chap, Adam in the US, who had written an article in there, really, really good article. If you haven't read it, um, do talking about how he watches games, listens to games, and how he interacts and tries to come over as much as he can. And it gives you a really good insight into the life of an exile, albeit a lot further away than we are. And we find it tough enough. So yeah, fair play to him for sticking with it.
Yeah, I know
But
you mentioned we mentioned the different types of people we've met at London Bulls events, and we've actually met a couple of people that weren't even born or bred in Hereford. Like
yeah,
they're like second or third generation
yeah,
of parent or grandparent as a Hereford fan. They've maybe lived in London all their life or somewhere else,
hmm,
and I think that's been nice for them because they tend to go to away games or home games on their own, and
mm,
now we're starting to get that community going. And
yeah,
I just wanted to touch on I follow England away as well, and the
hmm,
respect that England fans have when they see, that I support Hereford is
yeah,
incredible. So it's amazing seeing we've got fans all over the world, but also how well known Hereford is um,
yeah,
throughout the
yeah, for sure.
country and, different countries I've gone to with England.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we probably got Ronnie Radford to thank for that, for sure. Um, I think we should move on to some of the sort of subject that we wanted to talk about really with this podcast is we want to talk about what's going on at the moment with the club in terms of on the field, off the field. We want to talk about our experiences, maybe some of our memories of certain games, have a little bit of a memory corner. And I think eventually we want to try and get people to integrate, either we have people on or we take sort of questions from social media, etc. So it'd be really good if people can send stuff in and and any suggestions that you want us to discuss subjects about or even just anyone you'd like to see on the podcast. Really, keep it realistic, obviously, but then maybe we should dream.
Who is the dream guest, Tom? Who is your dream guest?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that then. I think, I'd love to get Joe, I'd love Gary Hooper. He was a hero of mine that season. I wish we'd signed him at the end of it, but it wasn't to be. That holiday that he took, just got in the way. But I'd say, Joe, what I would, the other person I would absolutely love. I reckon he'd do it. Is Jarrod Bowen. I reckon he would do it. He's London based as well, so that's maybe we could meet in person. But yeah, I'd love to get him on. I think he'd love to talk about his memories of growing up watching Hereford and then playing for Hereford, and
Yeah,
some
both
other
those
stuff about
guys,
West Ham and England.
they both had an interesting journey, haven't they? They're
Yeah.
not just
So
too bad for themselves. Let's put it that way.
yeah, absolutely. What about you? Who would you love to get on?
First thing before I get to mine, Gary Hooper could be a possibility because I didn't realize he
Okay.
actually plays at Barnet, so maybe we could
Yeah, of
actually
course he
have
does.
him
Yeah,
this
yeah.
season. I'd have to go, Sergio McDonald. I think
Really?
it
Yeah.
would be really interesting to hear how he's done after leaving us. I mean, he had
Yeah.
an unbelievable kind of start with us coming on loan. Him and Cooper had so good together.
Mm,
I think he got a hat trick in like his second game against Rochdale. I think.
yeah.
Really interesting to see how he's done. But the dream's got to be for me, Graham Turner.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
man. I mean, I was so good. I
Of
didn't get to
course.
see him speak. I think he was doing the hospitality against Blythe at home
Mm,
with Martin Brain, which would have been amazing to experience. But I didn't get to go to that
yeah.
side. I'd love to kind of just sit down with him for now.
Yeah. What would your dream question be to him then? What would you love to ask Graham Turner?
Dream question, I don't know. I think I'd just like to understand what it's like behind the scenes. Like
Hmm.
obviously he was our chairman when we were going through some real financial problems, and he really did a lot to stabilize the club in that
Yeah.
period. So I just like to understand for him like what it was like. I mean, how he dealt with pressure.
Yeah.
You got the pressure of not just how the results were on the pitch as a manager, but also like the finances and how you kind of manage that aspect of it too. So it's a really interesting role being chairman and manager. So I think I'd like to just understand how he kind of dealt with that stress.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's actually underrated the job that he did. I think we're all starting to realize that, maybe we realized it when we were in trouble with Keats and those that came afterwards. I shan't say their names, but we all know who they are. And and even now, how much he did a good job in getting a team out every year that was within budget, and we had some exceptional players. Obviously some of those we've just talked about on loan, but you people like Ryan Green and Rob Purdy, and that were fantastic players, and yet and they love the club and everything else clearly because they came back um, several times. But
I'd love to
those,
on the podcast as well.
yeah, yeah,
I
I
think they
would,
both.
yeah,
I think they both did something in hospitality once together, and they were just brilliant.
right,
I think it was like,
yeah,
oh yeah, great
foreign
ambassadors
off
for the
each
club.
other, yeah, absolutely.
And moving on to this season, we are
Mm,
3 points outside the playoffs at the time of
yeah,
recording.
yeah.
Um, I mean, what was your kind of expectations going into the season? Did you envisage we'd be there or thereabouts at this point?
I think no. I mean, I don't think in my wildest hopes I did. Not because I didn't think that we could, but because it was a new team, new manager. Paul Caddis hadn't managed before, so who knew what to expect really? And a lot of players, and we hadn't necessarily heard of these players, or they played in Wales. We didn't quite know a lot about them, but wow, we've what a season we've had really, and the fact that there is still a chance and a good chance that we might get into those playoffs. Kidderminster did it last year. They snuck in, they came seventh, and they won the playoffs and went up. And now they've got Phil Brown as manager. So, you know, we don't need Phil Brown. We've got Paul Caddis. So I'm really optimistic about this. we've had some really tough games. The last three games, obviously playing those teams that are around us. Okay, we haven't quite had the results we wanted, but when you look at the Chorley game, we only lost 1-0. It wasn't a great game. I wasn't there, but from what I've read, heard, watched of the highlights, maybe the referee had a say in it as well. But and then subsequently why Paul Caddis was in the in the crowd at Brackley. But yeah, and then obviously that Alverton game, which we mentioned, obviously watching with the London Bulls. What a game it was, and it was great to draw 3-3 and Caddis's comments afterwards about being disappointed but proud. I think that's probably about spot on, really. And then obviously the Brackley game, for those that were there or heard it or have watched anything of it, wasn't great. Neither team was great. I was unlucky enough to be there, and we didn't play very well, but yeah, it seemed like we were tired, and I think, yeah, I can see that, especially after that
Yeah,
effort
I
on
mean,
Tuesday.
I echo exactly what you're saying. I think Paul and Stig have just been a breath of fresh air this season,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
their communication has been unbelievable. I think it's something
Yeah,
we've not had before, if I'm honest with you. I don't really
yeah,
remember
no,
um, a chairman and manager being this so transparent and
hmm,
this good with communication. And I think it's been really refreshing. I think the fans are really enjoying it.
yeah,
It feels like they bought into the team a lot more
yeah,
because of it. And I think, if we maybe lost the game over the last 2 or 3 seasons, you'd see the gates dramatically drop. And
yeah,
even though we're losing like 1 or 2 nil some games, you're seeing things in the comments like people still like, "Come on, we got the next one, don't
mm,
worry." There's not a lack of effort with this team. You can see them really
yeah,
fighting to the end. And the Old Firton game you mentioned, I genuinely believe like 1 or 2 seasons ago, if we were 3-1 down, it would have been game over. And
mm,
speaking to some of the guys during the screening, some people were like, "Look, we're still in it. Like, I don't actually
yeah,
believe we're fully out of this yet." And I've noticed that mindset shift
yeah,
that
yeah.
pulls.
No, I'd agree with you. Yeah, yeah,
So
but it's the connection, as you said, it's the connection with the fans and the club and everybody it feels like the players buy into it. It feels like Paul Caddis is here to stay. I know that, you know, I don't know what I would do in his position if a League One club came in for me or a League Two club came in for me, but it feels like he's here. And then, as you say, with Stig Ammons and Jamie Griffiths, their updates and their communication and the press releases have been really, really positive. Um, because I think one thing, as you said, we've really struggled with is not having information or being updated on anything, and they really do try, even if there isn't an update, they still tell us that fact, rather than going, well, we haven't got anything to say, so we're not going to say it. And I think we've had a lot of that in the past, and we're all very wary of that, and because of what's happened in the past to the club. Um, so yeah, so I think it's there's so many positives to take out of this, and yes, okay, it's frustrating if we don't win the game or draw when we could have done, because we could be on more points now, but we're on the points we're on. We've done really well, and we need to look at that. I think we need to get some perspective of the fact that we're doing quite well.
yeah, yeah, for
I mean,
sure.
how do you feel?
Especially,
Do you feel the same?
yeah, I mean, we've got a few full-time clubs in this league. We often
Mm.
forget it's a bit of a mad
Yeah,
league, isn't it? You've got a hybrid of part-time, full-time clubs, and
hmm,
as you mentioned, that communication has brought a sense of togetherness with the club, and Paul
hmm.
really appreciates that. I felt quite disconnected with players and I guess management in previous seasons, and you've seen people like Curtis Pond going to the commercial,
Yeah,
a couple of
yeah,
days in the fans after. Do you know what I mean? That's unheard
yeah,
of.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know
And
what the manager would say about that, but
yeah,
yes,
well, I
but
think
that's
Paul went to
great.
them
But
at
it's
one point actually.
but it's
So
but it's what used to happen back in the day. I remember, not personally because I wasn't old enough, so I definitely wasn't in the pub when these things happened. But people like Dean Beckwith and players of that era used to go to the pub a fair bit on a Friday or Saturday night. It's not a Friday night, I'm hoping, unless they're John Mills. But yeah, on a Saturday night after the games, whatever, and they would go and you know again, it felt like players were here to stay. They'd moved their families here. I mean, Purdy's probably a great example of that, Rob Purdy, because he's I think he was, is he Leicester he's from originally? He was born. And when he moved here, I bet he never thought he'd create a life here, but he has. And that'd be interesting why I'd want to talk to him really about what he why he stayed and what made him connect with the city so well. But yeah, that's what I'd love to get back to. And it's tough because of the league that we're in. We're not North really, and the fact we're in the middle of nowhere as a place. It's not easy to attract players, and when Graham Tenney used to go down to the service station and sign players there on the M5 or M6 rather than bring them to Hereford, I think that probably says everything. But that's it's yeah, I think you're always going to have a better team, more and a better connection to the fans if you've got people who want to be here rather than just a stepping stone.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we are 3 points from the playoffs, and because of the effort this squad has put in and how connected I feel, even if
Mhm.
we didn't make it, I don't think I'd be as disappointed. I genuinely think this has
Yeah.
been a successful season. Obviously, everyone
Hmm.
wants promotion, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
I genuinely believe this has been a real successful season on and off the pitch,
Yeah.
because of that connection that the managers help create. And I think I am feeling, confident in the next few games. I think these are very winnable games. We've got Farsley next,
Hmm.
Banbury coming up.
Yeah.
I think, we have to put into perspective, as you said, how tough those last three games were. That these teams
Hmm.
are in the playoffs. They've been doing really well. And we
Yeah.
haven't been, it's not like we've been dominated out of
Hmm.
off
Yeah.
the pitch. I guess against Brackley, 2-0 defeat. But, I think we beat them in the reverse fixture at Edgar Street.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I am feeling quite hopeful. I do think it will go to the wire, if I'm honest with you. I think it will go to the
Do you?
last
Yeah.
bits.
Right down to the end. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
think our last game's against Boston, and I think they're all thereabouts as well. They're quite close to us. So, yeah,
Mm.
I genuinely think it could go all the way. It's gonna be very nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I suppose talking of the next game, Farsley on the weekend at home. How do you think it's going to go? Give me a score prediction if you fancy.
I think we're actually going to be quite frustrated. We're feeling frustrated after that, actually. So I
Mm.
can see a 4-0, 4-1 win.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
feeling really hopeful. I
Yeah.
don't know where Farsi are in the league. I don't know if they've got anything to
They're
play.
19th. Yeah. So
Are they in the
uh,
relegation?
they're just outside.
Just
Yeah.
okay.
So
So, well, yeah, it'll probably be tougher than I'm thinking then. But I do think we've got some goals in us that we really want to, want to put these guys to bed.
yeah. Yeah. No, fair enough. I mean, to be honest, I was thinking 3-1, so I'm not like that crazy compared to you, but yeah, I suppose it's well, hopefully we'll get a win. We should at home, and as you said, hopefully Caddis has spoken to them, and you know, as we'll have a better performance on Saturday. Um, okay, well that's great. I think we wanted to talk a little bit about being in exile, and maybe some of our other interests personally, which we know a few fans can probably connect with. Um, so I think you mentioned earlier about England. We both go and watch England quite a bit. You go to the away games. I don't, but um, and we're both going to Germany in the summer, which I'm sure we'll talk about more closer to the time. I think it'd be a good chat to have. Obviously, England have got Brazil on the weekend. Um, Jarrod Bowen's in the squad.
Yeah.
Do you think he'll start, or do you think he'll be off the bench?
Well, that's such a good question. Oh, God, the attacking talent we have, like it's so competitive. I think he will start against Brazil or Belgium. I think he's going to start one of the games. I can't
Sure.
imagine him being a sub in both. I don't know. I think Gareth might go with his strongest lineup against Brazil, and then
Hmm.
maybe tinker a little bit on Tuesday against Belgium.
Sure.
Whether Jarrod is part of that strongest lineup, I'm unsure yet.
Yeah.
But I would love to see him start. But I think he'll probably start against Belgium if I'm honest.
Hmm.
And yeah, you mentioned Euros. I'm so excited about it. We'll be going out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm feeling quite hopeful. I think this will be Gareth Southgate's last tournament.
Do you? Yeah.
It's looking
Yeah.
like it. And I really hope he has his critics about tactics and things like that. But I genuinely believe, I mean, the culture shift he's created has been
Mm.
incredible, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. There have been
Yeah,
big moments like against Italy in the final, we should have won.
yeah,
But he's getting us to stages we've not been in for a very long
yeah,
time.
yeah. And he's creating that excitement. And if you look at, the younger generations, you look at, schools, they're doing their projects on it. The kids that all, sort of going out in the gardens or on the football pitches and pretending to be Harry Kane and Jude Bellingham and Saka and Harry Maguire. And so, it's really it's great. And you know, and I think it's similar in for the women as well, how they've um changed the perception of it, certainly at that level. But going back to the men's, I think I think England are going to do well in the summer. I really do believe that we got a tough group actually with
Yeah,
Serbia
really tough group.
and Denmark.
Could
Um,
you imagine if Jarrod Bowen scored like the winner in the final? Like, could you
I mean,
imagine
if he
his
did, I
stature
don't know what
best?
I'd do. I think
I
you know,
wouldn't be able to handle it.
no, it'd be a tough one, wouldn't it? If he does what he did for West Ham in that Europa Conference final.
Do you think
Um,
like when he scored it? I think it was against Alfreton actually.
it was Alfreton,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was.
yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah.
must have never imagined like when the club folded a few games after that, like whether he would actually be playing for England at a Euros or even just being.
Mm,
Could you imagine? Like, he probably never would have
yeah.
imagined in his wildest dreams.
No, and I'd love to sort of know the timeline of things actually, with when the club obviously folded, and him going to Hull. I know it was at the start of that sort of season where we did fold, but um, because I wonder what he must have confidence in his ability. Because he clearly had talent when he was at Hereford, but he was 17 years old, and who knows where that's going to go. But he was a good player at Hull, and he became one of their best players. And then they sold him, and I can't remember the name of the striker at the same time in the same January window,
Yeah.
and nearly got themselves relegated. And but you just thought, is he going to be able to hack it in the Premier League? And yes, he can. And as you said, the fact that he's been picked for England now on multiple occasions, and I think he's always done well when he's played for England. Maybe not many
I
minutes,
felt
but
like pride, the Europa Conference League final, when
mm,
West Ham won. Well, I can't remember the actual team they're playing against. I think it was a Dutch team. When he scored in the last minute, God, I lost it.
mhm.
And I really love the way West Ham have, have mentioned his Hereford identity. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
seen what they call it. They
Hereford Hammer. Yeah,
really love
yeah,
it.
it's
Um,
incredible.
so yeah, really exciting summer we've got coming up, and yeah, feeling
Yeah,
good.
for
I
sure.
can't wait. I might put a bet on now, or score that
Want
winner
us
in the
to
last
win
minute,
it?
also in the final. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
brilliant.
guess going into the last 5 minutes or so, I think it'd be good to talk about, memories, certain memories we
Mm.
have of this club and any iconic games or players that stand up for us. And one particular memory is a certain player final against Halifax. And I'm very jealous, Tom, because I believe you were there that day.
I was. Yeah, I mean, God, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was incredible, incredible day. I mean, I think there are bits that are a blur, and I think Ryan Green's goal going in was a bit of a blur. And definitely the celebrations afterwards. But yeah, I mean, it was just what a day. It was our third year in the playoffs. We'd had so much heartbreak before, and I think that previous season against Stevenage is the first time I ever cried at a football match. And I was so upset and just thought, well, that's it. We've got a good team, but there's no way we can do it 3 years on the trot. And well, we did. And it was three times lucky. We got to the final, and Halifax were a good side. I think they'd only been beaten once all season at home, and that was by us. And, obviously they went 1-0 up and then 2-1 up. And I think when they went 2-1 up, I just it was like 76 minutes or something like that, and I thought, oh, it's tough, this is going to be tough. And then, well, step up, gear poor. I mean, obviously the legend of the semi-final, scoring that goal to win us the game then.
I'll
and
never
to
forget
just
how iconic it was, when he was like calling over Andy Williams when he's been
yeah,
subbing.
yeah, absolutely. You're screaming at him to get off, and yeah, we were probably screaming at Willow as well to get off because we wanted to get a new player on. But yeah, I mean, he set the goal up for himself, passed it out to the wing, and got in there for the cross and got the header. And that, when that happened, I genuinely think that was the moment I went, I think we're going to do this. When Green's goal went in, it's just amazing. But of course, we'd come back from being down, so every chance that Halifax were going to do it. And I think an iconic moment for me is when Wayne Brown got knocked out. Um, I think it was by Dean Beckwith actually, and you know, he was on the floor for a while. I think Wayne Jones, the physio, was spraying him with water, and I think Dean Beckwith was putting the goalkeeper's shirt on, thinking that Brown was going to come off, and yeah, I mean, he made a brilliant save a couple of minutes after that from, I think it's from their centre back actually, had a shot from the edge of the area, top corner, and Browner, just Superman, isn't he? So obviously grabbed it out of the air. But yeah, but it was just everything that day. We went. I went with my dad and my sister, and my other sister was there, but went was somewhere else in the ground. And yeah, it was just that whole build up, and this is our moment, and fantastic.
I'm so jealous,
I
Tom. I
mean,
was on a PGL trip in
going to say,
France.
what were your memories? Yeah.
Um, well, we had another Hereford fan who lucky had a Nokia phone, and it was costing like pound every 3 seconds just to like refresh the score on that.
Yeah,
BBC Sport. But yeah, I mean, this is something we're hoping to do a bit more of in the podcast. Just
yeah, for
revisit
sure.
certain memorable matches, just go over them, talk about certain players, and then hopefully invite someone on the podcast that maybe we could meet them online or meet them in person if they're based in London now. But
Yeah,
yeah, I'm really excited about the growth of this podcast and where it goes. I mean, it's been a really
yeah.
nice kind of chatting to you about it and getting off the
Yeah,
ground.
absolutely, mate. And I hope people enjoy it. If you are still listening, if you've managed to get to the end, I really hope you've enjoyed it. And please get in contact. Facebook, Twitter, our email address. We'll make that known as well. And yeah, get in contact. Questions, thoughts, whatever. Yeah.
Brilliant. And hopefully we'll be celebrating 3 points on Saturday.
Oh, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks again, Tom. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.